All right, I'll just get started with welcoming everyone to the webinar today. So my name is Claire Ladd, and I am the Programs and Services Manager at the Massachusetts Nonprofit Network. And just a few quick housekeeping items before we start with the webinar. The recording and the slides from today's program will be emailed to you following the webinar, so please keep an eye out for that. Additionally, if you have any technical difficulties during the program, just put those in the chat anytime, and you can also submit questions to us via the chat in the Q&A box at any time, and there will be time at the end to address questions. I also want to give a little background about us here at MNN. Our three goals at MNN are to strengthen the nonprofit sector through advocacy, public awareness of our sector, and capacity building services. This webinar is part of our capacity building offerings as part of our general webinar series. So please stay tuned for future topics in the coming weeks, as we always have more webinars, and reach out to us if you have any topics you'd like to see. Our efforts are made possible by more than 600 member organizations. To those who are members, thank you for your partnership. And if you have not yet joined but would like to take advantage of the opportunities and cost savings, you can visit our website, massnonprofitnet.org/join, to find out more. Today's webinar is presented by First Nonprofit. First Nonprofit, our unemployment services partner since 2017, is going to talk about how nonprofits can avoid or opt out of unemployment overpayments to the state of Massachusetts. First Nonprofit helps over 2,100 nonprofits save millions on unemployment expenses each year. Cruz Mendez, their marketing director, will be handling questions throughout the presentation. So please send any questions you may have in the questions or chat box. And Julie Wallace, the regional director, will be presenting. Julie has been working with nonprofits for many years, but has been in the insurance industry for 30+ years. So with that, I will hand it over to Julie.
Thank you, Claire, and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for taking time to hear our presentation and to join Cruz, Claire, and I. Today's topic is going to be more geared towards kind of showing and advising nonprofits that they have options on their unemployment insurance programs. And as Claire mentioned, we do hope that you'll add some questions to the chat as we go along, and Cruz will be kind of monitoring that and throwing those back to me where we can answer those questions. It's good to do that as we kind of go along because you might have some questions. We're going to kind of touch on some claims and cost administration, as well as UI taxes if you're an employer paying into the tax system, options that you have if you're tax paying, or if you've already found out that you can opt out of the state and handle your claims as a reimbursing or self-insuring method. Talk about a few things in the state of Massachusetts with regard to wage-based increases and surcharges and things of that nature. Little bit about us, little quick intro about First Nonprofit. So we were founded by the United Way, which is a nonprofit, in 1978. We're actually based out of Chicago. I am here right in New England for you, so very local. Cruz does sit in our Chicago office. We, as Claire mentioned, we basically only handle nonprofits for unemployment insurance, and that would include government entities and tribals. And we have over 2,100 nonprofits across the country that we work with and cover 700,000 of those employees. First Nonprofit is an Amenta Group company. We're owned by Madison Dearborn Partners with insurance provided by AmTrust Financial. Prior to myself joining First Nonprofit in 2018, I actually worked P&C for AmTrust Financial. So got a nice insurance background as far as that goes. So these are our partners that we have across the country, if you will. They're endorsed and recognized over 30 national, state, and nonprofit associations. As you can see, whoops, sorry, too quick on my clicks. MNN, and as Claire mentioned, we've partnered with MNN since 2017. We actually do have some members within the Mass Nonprofit Network that are part of our program. So I thought what I would do first off is just kind of little background on kind of Unemployment 101, just a couple of quick slides to kind of give you a little intro on that. So most commonly, when somebody gets unemployed, and they have to be unemployed through no fault of their own, it's going to be, most generally, they're going to have a layoff. It could be employer initiated. As we know, during COVID-19, that basically also was government shutdown, state, federal, due to them trying to avoid large increases or spread of the virus. So there were a lot of layoffs during COVID-19, but a layoff could also be initiated by the employer due to maybe some, in a nonprofit world, lack of funding, loss of funding, downsizing, maybe they lost a grant. There's also a separation for voluntary quit, and that's usually employee initiated. And that could be possibly they, got married, moved away, maybe an issue with, maybe the job didn't end up being a fit for them. So that usually, again, a voluntary quit is usually employee initiated. Discharge, another one that's employer initiated. And that basically could be possibly the employee violated a policy or had a performance issue, things of that nature. In any case, no matter what one of these three happens, the case is going to be handled by the state, and they're going to be the ones to determine the burden of proof. So basically, they're going to look at the separation paperwork that's filed by the employee through the state, and they're going to work with the state's going to work with the employer to figure out what the reason for separation was. A little more on kind of Unemployment 101. All states will provide unemployment benefits, but each state operates independently. So Massachusetts operates different than New Hampshire, Connecticut, Rhode Island. If I use kind of New England examples, they're all going to operate a little bit differently. But the commonality between the states is all claimants you have to be available to work. You have to be able to work, so physically able. And then there is a requirement that you're actively seeking work. So basically, that's if you're unemployed, you're an employee that's unemployed, you have to be doing some job searches with that state. And usually it's about 3 a week. They require you, basically, they don't want you sitting home just kind of collecting unemployment. You do have to be searching to get yourself in that back in that employed state. Many of these requirements or eligibility, if you will, were waived and adjusted during COVID time. Basically, what happened was they wanted to the states wanted to get money in everybody's hands as quick as possible. So a lot of these things were waived. And also during COVID-19, they had basically, there was no, the government was shut down. So there was no work, available for those. So they did, for a short period of time, several months, they did waive a lot of these things. But during, when you're unemployed, in the state of Massachusetts, you do need to, as well as other states, you do need to meet a certain criteria in order to be able to collect unemployment. In Massachusetts, a worker must earn approximately 15 weeks of pay, roughly 30 times the potential weekly benefit, and $5,400 paid during the base period. And that's like a quarterly amount that's due. We had this presentation set up, but I actually think this is changing to $5,700. I did see that somewhere, but I didn't get anything quantified, but the latest is $5,400. And then the max claim is a range of $974 to $1,461 for 30 weeks. The average amount of weeks that one can claim throughout the country is about 26 weeks. New Hampshire does 26 weeks, Connecticut does 26 weeks, just to kind of give you an idea. So in Massachusetts, you get 4 additional weeks, which adds 4 additional weeks of liability on an employer's basically line item. So it's a little bit, you get a little bit more. If you're an employee, you get a little bit more, but the employer is going to pay a little bit more as well. So that's what's kind of important here. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. So moving on to, so employer concerns. So this is why kind of we wanted to talk to you today, and just kind of give you a little bit of food for thought with regard to what's going on. So if you're an employer paying into the UI tax system, you're going to be assigned a rate, and that's going to be on an annual basis, and that's going to be a rate per employee on wages up to a predetermined amount. And in the state of Massachusetts, that predetermined amount, which is actually called the taxable wage base, is $15,000. And then roughly what you're going to end up paying is a cost per employee. So during COVID time, what we did was we kept looking kind of back to the other recession that we had, which was the Great Recession, 2008 to 2009, or ending 2007 into 2009. And during that time, the average cost per employee that the employer was paying was $471. Cut to 2020, slightly prior to the pandemic, that had increased to $536. There were increases and decreases during that time frame. We did realize that when you came out of the Great Recession, that several years after that, these average cost per employee amounts went up as the states tried to replenish the trust fund balances that were depleted during the Great Recession, and again then during COVID-19. So these are just estimates. We show that in 2022 that's going to go up to 573. So as you can see, costs are trickling up as we go along. We don't know yet where it'll be in 2023, 2024, but it could be up. If it's any indication from the Great Recession, these costs could be increasing. And again, this is basically if you're into the tax system, if you're reimbursing, so I'm assuming I have some reimbursers or self-insurers on the call, this doesn't necessarily apply to you, but some of the other things that we'll talk about today will apply to you. The next slide is talking, again, a little bit more for employers' concerns. This is going to apply to both a taxpayer and a reimburser or a self-insurer. So I talked a little bit about it earlier. So in the state of, in all states, there's usually a minimum maximum amount of the weekly benefit. And that's basically the amount that the employer is going to be awarded after their separation paperwork is completed and reviewed, and if they are eligible for unemployment. So in the state of Massachusetts, the minimum weekly benefit amount is $37 to $55, and that payout would be $37 times the 30 weeks that they get, not 26 like a lot of the other states, but they actually get 30. That's going to range out to 1,110 to 1,650. Again, 37 or 55 times that 30 weeks. And that's going to be the bare minimum. So that's going to be somebody making a lower payroll amount. If they're on the higher end of the scale, they're going to make a maximum of $974 to $1,461. And that actually what's really prevalent here, and this is happening in a lot of states. So if you actually handle other states, have employees in other states, this maximum weekly benefit amount is going up. It was $855 to $1,282 during 2021, and now it's $974. We're seeing this across all states, this going up. And I have in actually the state of Vermont, which I also handle, it went up like 2 times during the COVID pandemic. And now it's gone up a 3rd time. So they're increasing, and this is going to put more liability on the employer's bottom line figures. Total maximum payout is that 29,000 to 220 to 43,830. And this is a 14% over the prior year of 2021, which I just talked about. It was 855 to 1282, and now it's 974. So you see the numbers going up. Again, talked about the maximum number of weeks collectible, 30 weeks, up from 26 during the pandemic. In the state of Massachusetts, when there is high unemployment, the state of Mass will drop that number of weeks down to 26 weeks. It's now, because we're coming somewhat out of the pandemic, it's now back up to the average 30 that they use in Massachusetts. The average tax range for Massachusetts, and this is actually applicable only to those that are still tax paying, it's 1.114% up to 222, excuse me. COVID-19 brought an assessment to Massachusetts. To what they did was they needed a place to handle all those excess claims. So they put them in a fund, and it's called the COVID-19 Recovery Assessment. That during 2021 was 10.5. We did not have, and Massachusetts did not have that prior to the pandemic. We had a solvency in that state, but they did not have the COVID recovery assessment. It was 10.5% during 21. It's now 12.5. So it's about an additional $269 per employee on the higher end of the scale. Lower end of the scale, $100, a little more than 100. But that's important if you're tax paying. Some of the weekly benefit amounts affect, again, both taxpayers and reimbursers. Others affect just a taxpayer. So basically a little bit of a food for thought for you in kind of getting you thinking about kind of looking at things and seeing maybe where you can save money and all of that. Is there any questions so far? No questions? Thanks, Cruz. All right, so options that you have as a nonprofit. I'm taking kind of a little bit of a discussion on the options, more so than kind of the things that we can provide. I will talk about a little bit about that, but I really want you to kind of think about things that you have. Again, a little food for thought. So 501c3 nonprofits, government entities, and tribal nations, and that's all first nonprofit handles. You all have a choice. You can, first option would be to pay into the state tax system like for-profit entities. And basically, I talked a little bit about that earlier. You're going to pay a tax per employee up to 15,000, which is the amount, the taxable wage base in Massachusetts. And you're going to basically pay whatever that rate is. What's prevalent about that is you're subsidized along with other industries out there, construction, manufacturing, and those industries could be having higher claims. Maybe your organization or a group of nonprofits isn't having any claims. You're going to be linked in with all of those other for-profit entities and nonprofits maybe that are having some claims. There's going to be those state surcharges that will offset loans from the federal government. In the state of Massachusetts, they took out a $2.2 billion loan to cover the unemployment claims during the pandemic. And so then we ended up with that COVID assessment that I talked about in the prior slide, but you also have always had a solvency assessment added in there. We don't know going forward, 23, 24, 25. I feel like, and this is my judgment, I feel like that COVID assessment is going to stick around for a while. But I don't know that for sure. Maybe it'll stick around for maybe just a couple of years and maybe go a little lower or a little higher. We don't know where that's going to go. The solvency has always been in play in Massachusetts, so that will probably continue, and then hopefully that will be it. So again, tax pay option, like for-profit is the one probably many of you are in today. And then the second option that you have is what they call a pay-as-you-go or reimburse only for your unemployment claims. So what you do in this option is you opt out of the state, and that option means that you're going to basically handle all of the, the state's still going to handle some of your paperwork, but you're going to handle a lot of it. And then you're going to get either a monthly or quarterly bill that's going to show what your claims are for that period of time. And you're going to basically reimburse the state 100% for those amounts. By moving out of the state UI tax program, you now can build an account that solely covers your own claims. So it's basically, you're not going to be subsidized with those other employers. You're basically just going to be covering your own claims. This can be risky if you don't budget enough, which is where we might be able to help you there on that. But also, if you don't know, could you lose a funding or a grant or anything along that, it just makes it really hard to budget. We find that 1 in 4 nonprofit employers are unaware of their unique tax alternatives. So basically, many of the nonprofits that we work with don't realize that they have options. They think this tax method is the only option available.
Hey, Julie.
Yes, Cruz.
Question.
Okay.
Where do employees file for unemployment under the pay-as-you-go method?
Employees will still, no matter who handles the program, whether they pay through the tax system or whether they self-insure or whether First Nonprofit or another program helps them, the employee is still going to file that claim through the state.
Great.
Yeah, so that does not change. There's no effect on the employee of who handles the program.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you. That was a great question. All right. Okay, so this is just a little information on the rate notice that is related to if you're paying into the tax system. Can everybody see that okay? So through the magic of the state calculating your tax rate, and you're going to get this at the beginning of the year, through the magic of calculating all of this data, they're going to come up with a reserve, what they call a reserve ratio. And this is something you'll have if you're tax paying, you're familiar with it, you'll be able to get this online. So you're going to have a reserve ratio, and the states, and actually Massachusetts isn't the only state, but many of the states rate on a 3-year history. So this particular rate notice is 2022. They're going to rate based on these 3 years of data. Many of you will know that. And then they come up with a reserve ratio. In this case, it's 8.97 after they did all their underwriting magic, if you will. And then that rate, what they're going to do then is they're going to look at the chart that's published by the state of Massachusetts. And they're going to, there's 5 schedules out there, A through G. And basically what they're going to see is they're going to see this reserve ratio. They're going to look it up online or on the website, the state's website, and then they're going to see what that calculates out to 2.960. So that is the contribution rate. But also in addition to it, they're going to have that there's going to be an amount of the COVID recovery. And that again, in 2021, that's a new assessment that Massachusetts rate taxpayers, got for helping recover the trust fund that was depleted. So that's going to be the rate for that amount. And then, so this is what's going to be the rate. So this is going to be your rate times your annual payroll done on a quarterly basis. So that's basically what this rate notice represents. If we look at your program, we do ask you to send this to us because this helps us see where you were in the tax method. If you're a reimburser, you aren't subject to this at all. You're basically just going to pay dollar for dollar for your unemployment claims, and it's going to be basically 100% of what those claims were. I will tell you, during COVID-19, we did get the reimbursers got the 50% subsidy from the government, but on non-COVID times, you're basically, if you're reimbursing, you're responsible for 100% of your claims.
Julian, another question. The statement lists a balance of over $1 million. Does the employer own the reserve balance?
So in the tax method, the employer does not own the reserve. That is owned by the state. If you come into a program at First Nonprofit, one of our programs does allow you to set up a reserve, which I will talk about in a few minutes. So you can have that reserve set up for your own claim paying, but in the state, the reserve is not your reserve.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Another great question, Cruz. Okay, so quick couple of slides here. Super simple to switch from the tax paying method to self-insuring, whether you self-insure on your own and handle everything on your own, or whether you come on board with First Nonprofit. Again, we're going to look for that 2022 state rate notice. Depending on when and if you come on board, shortly there'll be the 2023 state rate notice. We may ask for that too. Super easy to obtain a quote. I'm going to go over all of that information with you, but we offer a free, no obligation risk savings analysis. So no harm, no foul. Enroll for 2023. Big savings. We have a couple of specials we're going to offer to you to get you kind of enticed in coming on board. So a couple little things. So on average, we saved individuals coming out of the tax method over 35% on their, again, on their tax method. We're going to give you a little bit of budgetary certainty where we're going to take the fee that we offer and we're going to divide it into 4 equal quarterly payments. So you're going to know exactly how much is due each quarter. If you're reimbursing on your own, your payments may fluctuate. You may not know what you're going to pay each month or each quarter. And again, in the state system, a lot of times the states are heavily funded in the beginning and your payments are heavier in the first 2 quarters of the year versus we're going to give you 4 equal quarterly installments. We're going to give you professional expert claims service and hearing representation. So basically, we're going to take a lot of work out of your hands. We're going to work with several different TPAs, third-party vendors, if you will, for the claims administration. And they could be people that you know, like somebody like Equifax. We're going to put you with a claim service that's comfortable for you. We also work with one called the Unemployment Tax Management Corp, and they're right in Massachusetts. That's a popular one for Massachusetts. We're going to have no pooling cost. Again, no shared. You're not going to be subsidized with everyone else. We're going to basically put a program together based on your individual characteristics. No one else's. You're going to be responsible for your own claims. Again, we talked about this a little bit ago in a question. No changes to your employees. All of them, regardless of who takes over the program or helps you with the program, the employees are still going to go through the state should they have a claim to file through no fault of their own. Payment of unemployment benefits to the state agency on your behalf. So the claims administrators, or the TPAs, if you will, third-party administrators, they're going to handle the paperwork for the program, and then they're going to send the charge statements, the benefit charge statements to us. We're going to pay the bills directly to the state. So you are not responsible to do that. And then we're going to represent your agency on all unemployment issues. And I will tell you, our third-party administrators, claims administrators, if you will, they are very up on all the laws and everything to deal with unemployment. They keep up to date with everything with regard to that. So professional claims handling is a big part of our program. Members, I'm going to talk about this in a couple minutes. MNN members receive an additional discount. I'll talk about that in a second. All right, so here's just a kind of a quick slide of some of our nonprofits that we handle. Basically, as long as it's a 501c3 government entity or tribal nation, we can handle it. So we have a book of YMCAs, WYCAs, Goodwill Industries, United Way Industries, healthcare, community action, any of the above. Just again, as long as it's a 501c3, you're eligible for the program. All right, so now I'm going to kind of touch on a few of our extra things that we offer with regard to part of our program. So I talked a little bit about, I'm going to hit, the first thing I'm going to hit is a little bit more detail about the claims administration. And then I'm going to go into 3 individual vendors that we partnered with at various times throughout our tenure. And I'll touch on a few of each of those as we kind of go along. So the first one is going to be, and again, this is a big part of our program, is the claims administration. Not only trying to save you money, but helping you administer and keep your claim liability down, if you will. So our claim administrators, or TPAs, if you will, they're going to audit all of the benefit charges. They're going to look at the claims duration and the liability for accuracy. We're going to ensure that any credits from the state are received. We and the claim administrator audit charges to wages paid to detect fraud. There is a lot of fraud out there during COVID-19, and it is continuing even today. So they're catching anything that they can with regard to fraud. If you know of anything, you make sure you keep us informed on that. They're going to process all the separation data. So basically, once that employee files the claim with the state, that the claim administrator, if we're working on the program for you, the claim administrator is going to be the address of record. So they're going to get the initial paperwork started, then they're going to come back and work with the employer to get the data that they need to finalize the claim. They're going to prepare and help you with anything to do with the hearings, prepare the arguments, protest decisions as needed, and they're going to also help attend the hearings, unemployment hearings, should something go to the court system. And then they're going to also, many of them give additional technical service. They'll help you review your personnel policies, procedures, all hiring and separation, provide educational workshops for management and supervisors. And then they're going to customize, you're going to have access to the customized claim activity reports and individual status reports. So that's all part of our program. All right, so the other things that we kind of refer to as F&P access is, so we work with, we partnered with Mineral, which was formerly Think HR in 2019. And they're basically they're a people risk management program, and they offer live SPHR and PHR certification advisors, but you're also going to be able to get help creating a handbook. You're going to be able to tap into any of the webinars that they offer. It's all part of our program. They're going to give you insight, steady stream of information, learning. You can actually get things for your employees, HR related risks. If anybody's familiar with Think HR, this was formerly the Think HR. They're basically just going to help you reduce your workplace risk. And then we work with COES Global, and this is pretty basic. It's just going to offer you additional background services. So if you don't have, if you're not familiar with a background service, or you don't have any, preferences, we can help you with those processes. And then the last one that we work with is Commonwealth Purchasing Group. And what they are is they're group purchasing. They're right in Boston. Some of you might be familiar with it, but you're going to get deep discounts on things like WB Mason, any office type supplies. If there's anybody in the healthcare industry, you're going to get discounts on PEE or PPE, excuse me, medical equipment. They have over 65 vendors that they work with. We do have a little special for you today with regard to mineral. Oops, oh, went too far. So we have a little program that we're offering. Part of the minerals offerings is workplace harassment package, and we're going to include that with the enrollment in a program effective 10/1/22 to 1/1/23 at no additional cost for 2 years, valuing starting at $14,440 annually, plus a free HR assessment. Cruz, did you want to add a little on that, since this is kind of your cup of tea?
Oh, sure. So this is usually something that our members would have to pay an additional fee for. And so this workplace harassment package, we're offering it, as it states, at no additional cost. You'd have to enroll into one of our programs. And the HR assessment is something that we could offer to anyone on the line today. If you're interested, let us know. And it's basically a link that will be sent to your email, and you'll answer a series of questions. And it's basically evaluating any potential HR risks that might exist within your organization. And it's going to give you a rating out of 100. So there's a sample there that I quickly just click through and, randomly. So this gave me a 52 out of 100. And it'll give you, the areas that you might need some work on or more attention to. And like I said, it'll give you your score out of 100, and all that will go straight to your email inbox. So if you are interested in just getting that free HR assessment, we can certainly do that for you. But if you do come on board to one of the programs, that workplace harassment package will be included at no additional cost for 2 years. Thanks, Julie.
Thank you, Cruz. That was great. All right. Most of the mineral things that I talked about are included in the program. This is just something that additional that we're offering. All right. So again, we hope to be able to save you money on if you're in the tax system. We hope that we can pull you out of the tax system and save you on your unemployment cost and give you the claims management. Simple application process. And if anybody's interested, we can go over this in detail and also go over our programs. We have several programs that we offer. I'm not going to take the time today to really touch on those, but we'll touch on those as somebody becomes interested in it. But it's a 2-page application process. We do have a 1-page COVID supplemental that we're continuing with, and it just has a few questions. The application itself, the 2-page application, it's just filling in some budget information, some wage information, and then finding out if you had any layoffs in the last few years. And then we're going to gather your quarterly, and this is regardless of whether you're a taxpayer or a reimburser. Now that the application applies, and then we're going to gather your quarterly wage notices, the last 4 most recent quarters of wage data, and then we're going to also gather a few years of benefit charge summaries. And then if you're paying into the tax system, we're going to look for that UI rate notice, which I showed you an example of. And a lot of this information is available right on your UI portal. Whoever the person managing that would have a login, and all of that data is available there. If you need help in pulling that, should you decide to submit an application, we will help you with that process. And again, we offer a free, no obligation quote or a risk analysis, if you will. And if we can't save you money, We're going to let you know, maybe it's a good time to stay, you know, especially if you are in the tax system, we're going to say, okay, nope, stay this year. But it's usually something that maybe another year we can help you with. Most generally, again, we can help save you money, but there's from time to time, you know, there's times that we can't, depending on the size of the organization. So we're not gonna bring you in on a program if we can't save you money. We have some additional savings if you apply by 10/15. We do have an enrollment fee on one of our programs. We'll waive that enrollment fee if you come on board before or if you apply before 10/15. We'll waive that enrollment fee for you. It usually is a 20% discount. Anybody after that will get the 20% discount, but we'll completely waive it during their enrollment process if you enroll before 10/15. Other questions?
I don't see any questions just yet. We are going to be sharing a video. It looks like I can't send it via the chat box, but Claire will be following up with a copy of the slides and this presentation. And she'll also include just a short, I think it's a 3-minute and 20-second video to kind of just recap a lot of this information that you're welcome to, you know, share with your colleagues or any other nonprofit you feel might benefit from our services. But yeah, I don't see any other questions right now, Julie.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate the time that you took to hear about First Nonprofit in our programs and some options as to why and how you can save on unemployment cost. It's a good time to really look at your cost over the next couple of years as things go up, especially if you're tax paying. But again, if you're reimbursing, we can help you out, administer those claims. Maybe you're just a one-man operation or a one-lady operation and you are handling everything on your own. We can give you some help on that from the reimbursing side. Give you a budget, build you a little, what I call an SHA or a slush fund, your reserve balance, which is owned by your organization.
Great. Well, thank you both so much. And
thank you, Claire.
As you mentioned, I'll be following up with all the resources. So keep an eye out for that and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.